Welcome back to FUELSCast, a podcast by Mansfield Energy. Today we're diving into a topic that keeps modern diesel fleets running clean and compliant: diesel exhaust fluid, or DEF. DEF might not grab headlines, but it plays a critical role in emissions control, engine performance, and the overall cost of fleet operations. With tightening regulations and rising costs, understanding your DEF program has never been more important. Joining us today is Andy Austin, Mansfield's Senior Vice President of Specialty Products, and Jim Timmer, Vice President of DEF. They are here to share insights on the current state of the DEF market, what the future looks like across North America, including Canada, and how some of the largest fleets in the country are saving time and money with the right supply strategy. Whether you manage a nationwide fleet, oversee procurement, or just want to learn how to optimize your DEF usage, this episode is for you. Stick around as we break down the facts, debunk the myths, and explore the future of DEF. Andy Austin and Jim Timmer are in the house today. Welcome to both of you to FUELSCast.
Thanks for having us.
Andy Austin and Jim Timmer both head up our diesel exhaust fluid department here at Mansfield Energy. Why don't the both of you start us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your history here at Mansfield, and your journey to Mansfield.
Timmer, you want to go first?
Sure. I've been here in August, it'll be my 10-year anniversary with Mansfield, so I'm looking forward to that date. But it's been a great 10 years here, and I'm really looking forward for the next 10.
So that means your face is about to be on our famous 10-year anniversary wall.
On the wall, pretty soon.
I love that. Andy, how about you?
I have been at Mansfield since 2013, maybe late 2012. And I came here to build the DF business. We've been in the DF business since around 2010, but really kind of got into it seriously, around 2012. My responsibility at Mansfield is managing an area called Specialty Products, which includes our DF business.
Awesome. So let's start with the basics because our audience is going to kind of vary. Some people are going to know what DEF is, some people may not. So let's start with a little bit of history of what diesel exhaust fluid is, how it got started in our industry, and what the last few years have looked like in terms of energy industry.
So DEF was mandated by the government in 2010. It is a combination of urea and deionized water. It mixes with the exhaust stream of the diesel engines, and it helps eliminate the nitrous oxide emissions. And it turns it into nitrogen and water, which are both very great for the environment because they're already there now.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on that, Jim, I think DEF is the best sustainability story that our industry doesn't tell. The original concept for these, called them scrubbers, came from the manufacturing and power industries. They used to put these scrubbers on smokestacks to take the NOx out of the smokestacks. And so there's basically a catalytic converter and urea that gets sprayed into those exhaust streams. Well, they figured out, the smart people at the OEMs figured out how to miniaturize those and turn them into something you could put on a vehicle. And so that's essentially, what we have on all the diesel trucks and construction equipment, anything that's powered by a diesel engine today. And it takes about 90% of the NOx, that's nitrous oxide, that's coming out of a diesel tailpipe and turns it into nitrogen and water. And there's a new EPA mandate for 2027 that it's unclear. It may or may not get rolled back with the current administration, but that is targeting an additional 90% of the remaining 10% that's not being captured today. So that would get us to around 99% of the NOx that was going into the atmosphere back in, the early 2000s being eliminated. And you can see this. NASA actually has a map. They take a measurement from outer space, and they color that map with the level of NOx emissions. And if you looked at that map in 2005, you can see red all over the map. It's dark red, which reflects high NOx concentrations across all of our major cities. And if you look at it in 2022 or today, there's no red left on that map, which is a great visual for understanding how much of an impact the industry has had on removing at least one of our pollutants, and an important one in nitrous oxides.
You bring up a good point then. If it's a good, progress towards meeting those sustainability goals, are we merging that into sustainability plans with our customers? Or is it just...
Yeah, the challenge is it's not a CO2 story.
Yeah.
So that's why everybody's focused on CO2, but there are a lot of harmful effects of NOx. And, if you remember our cities and the soot and the smog that used to be in our cities, that's the problem that's been really addressed with these systems.
Now, we have our Blue Leaf brand of diesel exhaust fluid. Walk us through what that looks like, because I know we also do private label business too for some customers. So what's the difference in doing a Blue Leaf versus a private label or white label for different customers?
So Blue Leaf was created for Mansfield probably about 15 years ago, and it was originally used in Canada. We had a different brand at the time in the United States. And since then, we decided to move that brand into the United States across the board there. And so it's Mansfield's trademark for our DEF, whether it's bulk or packaged products. And we've been look forward to continue to grow that brand across the next several years.
Awesome.
Yeah, on the OEM or the private label side, but we find that a lot of our commercial and industrial customers want to use their own brand. And so it's always been our belief that we're here to support our customers' business efforts, business building efforts. And so we have a very robust private label program. We do it all in service to our customers to help them build a brand that represents their brand image and what they're trying to accomplish. And we're happy to be standing behind the curtain, so to speak, providing the solutions for our customers to be able to do that. And we service a number of private label brands today.
Now, we do packaged and we also do bulk DEF. Walk us through the difference between a packaged product and the bulk product and what kind of customers you see use either or.
Yeah, so it typically depends from the customer standpoint how much volume they're using. Typically, they only have, a small number of trucks than using a packaged product such as a 2.5-gallon jug. It is probably the right approach for them. As their fleet grows, they can move into drums and then into totes, which are the other two package types that we have. And those packages are available across North America, including Canada, and it allows the customers to continue to improve their cost structure. So obviously a jug costs more than a tote does, and then on the bulk side, you can continually move that up into tanks and then be able to receive larger deliveries at a much more cost-effective means. And so that's one of the things we work with a lot of our customers on, is helping them to get the right size package that they need for their fleet. We've seen a lot of really fairly big fleets still using jugs, and we've helped convince them to move into different, going into totes, for example, and save a substantial amount of money for their fleet across the year.
How do you help them understand how much is right for their business? Are you going in and really assessing their entire operation and helping them figure that out? Or are they coming to you and saying, here's how many trucks I have, how many?
Yeah, we get a little bit of both, to be honest. And they, some of them really understand the business and say, hey, I need to graduate this. Others, we help do that for them. And we look at what their fleet is today and what their growth plans are. But then we also look about what Andy talked about is coming here in a couple of years with the incremental usage of DEF that's going to be, go from 90% reduction to 99. That's going to take more DEF, so demand is going to go up. And so we make sure our customers keep those things in mind of what's happening out there to make the best solution for them going forward.
I think when you think about packaged versus bulk options, the cost savings for bulk options, if you've got sufficient demand for it at a location, are dramatic. So it really makes sense if you're a large fleet and you are making a decision for your whole fleet versus individuals. It really makes a lot of sense to move toward bulk for the cost savings. It's also a lot easier to manage. It's easier to control. You can put inventory management tank gauges on it, so it can be inventory managed by us, so that we just automatically refill the sites. And, quite frankly, from a sustainability standpoint and recycling standpoint, there's a lot less recycling going on when you've got a bulk tank versus jugs in your backyard stacking up every time you use a couple gallons of DEF.
So for the customers that have the bulk tanks on their site, is it a bulk tank just like a bulk fuel tank, or is it a different setup?
It's typically a bit different than the fuel side, because obviously you can use a poly solution, particularly in southern environments. We also have northern solutions that are better than just a steel, or in our case, we would need to be stainless steel tank for DEF. And so we've got a lot of different options, and as a result of that, we've created a catalog for our customers to be able to go in and see the different options that are available, and we give them the advice as to how to use that catalog and what they should be looking at purchasing for their needs.
Gotcha. So how do you quality control? Same conversation we talk about with our fuel. Obviously, you're checking for water and microbial growth and all of that kind of stuff. Do you have the same concerns for the bulk DEF as well?
Yeah, we don't really have the microbial, and we actually have a lot of water in there anyway. So
yeah,
we're looking for that.
Yeah.
But we do make sure that is a closed system when we do our deliveries. And the purpose of the closed system is so that contaminants aren't able to get into the product.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. We do seal all of our containers, whether it's a tote or a tank, to make sure that when we do go to do that delivery, they use these sealed connections in order to make sure that we have quality product that's not compromised at all.
Yeah, if you think about DEF, it's made from urea, a very purified technical grade urea. Urea is also used by the ag industry for fertilizer, but this is a much higher grade. And then deionized water, which is highly purified water. So it's very important that in that it's 32.5% urea and the rest is water. That's an established, very specific specification. DEF that doesn't meet that specification can cause a truck to derate and not run properly. But also, that urea solution is very pure. And the reason it needs to be pure is that all of those impurities, if there are any in it, they can infect the injectors on the system, on the selective catalytic reduction (SCR) units, and they can also affect the diesel particulate filters and what ends up in those, because that's what's this exhaust stream with urea in it is running through. And so you just can't have impurities in this, otherwise it affects other pieces on the vehicle and causes repairs prematurely, maintenance issues prematurely. So making sure you have really pure urea that meets the spec is very important. And we do have a quality person that's 100% dedicated to our quality. It's funny, when we first started, quality issues used to be, this is 12 years ago, 13 years ago, quality issues were a regular thing. We have very few quality issues today. I mean, I think the industry's done a great job of maintaining quality, putting systems and processes in place to make sure that the quality of the product is really, really good.
How are they checking for that quality? Is it a stick reading similar to a fuel reading, or is it a different process?
Yeah, there are different types of equipment.
Yeah.
You can check for the 32.5% level pretty easily, but when you have a quality issue, you got to run some chemical analysis tests on the product and really understand the full chemical makeup of it. If there's ever any issues, we run a thorough battery of tests, independent labs, and trace down the problem. We do keep samples, so every time a new batch of DEF is made in one of our facilities or one of our partners' facilities, we keep a sample. If there's ever a problem with anything that goes out from that batch of DEF, we've got an original sample to compare against what got delivered and to see kind of where in the chain it might have broken down.
So every time we have a new bulk delivery, are you delivering on top of old product, or do you have to have a new container each time?
You're delivering, you mean into the end customer tank?
Yeah.
It's just like fuel. You're delivering into that same tank. Yep, right on top of it. But as long as there was no problem in it before the truck got there. When the truck gets there and delivers on top of it,
Yeah.
it should be no problem as long as what's being delivered is of, proper quality.
Yeah.
So
Now, a few minutes ago, we talked about Canada. So we do have operations in Canada as well. Talk a little bit about our partnership and our operations out of Canada. Are things running the same way out of Canada? Are there different regulations, or how does that work?
I'll start. I think Canada, the thing about that's different in Canada is you can haul much bigger, heavier quantities of fuel and DEF. The hauling distances are much longer in Canada. So there are accommodations for bigger truck assets up there. So we deliver, in the U.S., a full truckload is 5,200 gallons. Up there, a full truckload can be, just under 10,000 gallons. So that's one thing that's different. The other thing is, if you think about the whole Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Seaway system, while it's international between Canada and the U.S., generally a ship is piloting in U.S. or Canadian waters. And so both of those countries have rules around marine scrubbers that use a higher concentrate. It wouldn't be called DEF because it's a 40% concentrate, but it's a urea concentrate solution that's exactly the same as DEF, just a higher concentrate. And so we're doing a lot more with marine, especially along that Great Lakes system, which is a real targeted area for marine DEF. A lot of international law doesn't govern the use of or requirement to use scrubbers. So once you're outside of our domestic waters, the scrubbers can be turned off. But if you're in our domestic waters, which all the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River are, and the same for Canada, those things have to be on. And there are more and more ships are either equipped with these scrubbers today. So that's a new business for us. It's an interesting one. We have ships will show up and at the last minute they'll call looking for DEF, and it's got to be delivered often in tote containers in very large quantities, 20 to 25 totes at a time, with a last minute notice. So it's a much harder business to handle.
Yeah, and I think the other side of that is, we built a vast network across Canada to be able to service all of our national account customers, both from the U.S., but also the ones in Canada. And that network has allowed us to be able to grow quite a bit over the last couple of years. So we can supply any of our customers from on the bulk side or the package side across the entire country, and that's become quite valuable for both our U.S. customers and our Canadian customers to limit the number of suppliers they have and work directly with Mansfield. So we've seen a nice bit of growth, and we're continuing to invest in Canada so that we're able to grow our business and make it more cost-effective for both us and our customers.
There's obviously a lot of geopolitical things going on right now, lots of war talk and regulation changes. Is that affecting the DEF business at all?
I would tell you, there's a couple of things that affect DEF and urea supply. Urea is made from natural gas, so that's the first thing. It comes out of nitrogen plants that whose big input is natural gas. So to the extent that we have demand for natural gas in this country to be liquefied and sent overseas, obviously DEF is competing for that resource, just like all those other countries are that need natural gas for their heating, for example. At the same time, we compete for the same natural gas molecules that the agriculture space does for the agriculture urea and other UAN and aqueous ammonia and other things that are made from natural gas. So there is competition for that molecule. And in the U.S., in North America, we have a pretty balanced urea supply system, and urea and DEF. We're a little bit short, and that is taken up by imports primarily by, that come by ship in a concentrate liqueur. There's some prill or dry urea that's imported. That goes through phases. In the past, that used to be a bigger amount of imports from where we have today. But it's a lot harder to handle the prill. You have to have higher water temperatures to melt it. Getting the blend precise is harder. These sacks, if they get any moisture, which they just pick up from the atmosphere, the prill in them hardens, so it's harder to break apart. It's just harder to work with that prill or hardened urea, crystals. So I think the industry prefers a liquefied concentrate form that gets blended into a finished product across North America and a big fleet of rail terminals that are operated by lots of different companies. And that model is one that dried prill imports doesn't really lend itself to as well. That said, you do see some of these imports kind of plus up sometimes, and then they go away. I think the war in Russia, we used to have a decent amount of urea imports into the Northeast U.S. from Russia. That's pretty dried up. But I would just say that the North American plants have done a pretty good job of keeping supply and demand balanced. I don't think we are way oversupplied. There was a period in the DEF business in the mid-teens where we were way oversupplied as an industry, and I think now there's probably a pretty good balance. The Saudis make urea. There's possibility you could bring urea from Saudi Arabia. You could bring it from China. You could potentially bring it, from Russia if they ever come back into the world order. But most of North America has gotten pretty comfortable with using domestic urea production. It's a very high quality product. The industry's done a pretty good job of keeping supply and demand balance, and I think they will continue to do that because each year as our demand grows, we see these plants in North America continue to increment their capacity to produce to meet that demand. Yeah, I don't know anything else to add to that. I don't think we have too many concerns about supply shortages. Where you do get supply shortage issues is when there's an unplanned turnaround for a plant in the U.S., and we're actually going through one of those right now. There's an unplanned outage up in Ontario, Canada, and that's definitely, while the producer that's there does a great job of providing rail capacity from elsewhere to substitute for that, it does create dislocations, and it does put a throttle on any kind of bump up you might need in supply. So, but short of those unexpected outages, I think the industry's done a pretty good job of keeping customers supplied and balancing supply and demand.
Let's talk a little bit about pricing options. How is DEF priced for customers? Is it similar to how we price fuel, different from how we price fuel? Talk a little bit about how we do that.
So historically, when we started the growth of DEF, it was tied very directly to urea. And at that time, urea was a fairly constant price. It would move some during planting season, whether it's the spring or the fall. However, we've seen it with different events, such as when COVID hit, when the Ukrainian invasion happened. Those things put little huge blips into the market and really changed the dynamics of the index that was trying to be used, which was the price of urea, which is typically agricultural urea. And so we've seen over the last few years a little bit more of a departure from that particular index, and we see that some of the producers are tying some production to that, but others are leaving as spot opportunities in the market. Whether the market's long or short depends on whether those spot opportunities, are positive or negative. But we are seeing a little bit more of a separation there. Andy, what are your thoughts?
I agree, Jim. I mean, the NOLA index is what you would hear, which is basically the amount for a 2,000-pound bag of urea landed in New Orleans, which is really doesn't have much, bearing on the price of urea in Idaho. or in New Jersey. And in the U.S., you have, I don't know, a dozen plants that produce technical grade urea. There are more than that many urea plants, but to produce technical grade urea, there's maybe a dozen or so. And so this notion of the NOLA index over time has, I think, weakened a bit on the side of the producers. And there are still a lot of customers who want an index. They see it for fuel. That's how they think. If they're buying fuel, they want to buy it off an index so they can negotiate it one time and work off that index for a year or two. And there are many customers who want to do that in the DEF space, and we do our best to accommodate that. But at the same time, we do have all of the producers in North America that are not necessarily tied directly to that index. As Jim mentioned, maybe a portion of their production is. So there is a little bit of a gap there, and there isn't really a good index that's out there today that is regionalized, and there just hasn't been one. So it's a delicate balance to make sure that we don't have a lot of risk exposure because we're being required to comply with an index for a customer, yet upstream of us, that producer may not be following an index. And if you are a producer and a portion of what we buy is an index and a portion of what we buy is spot, well, you can always change the spot price such that, the index doesn't really matter. So that's the tricky part. I think customers have gotten educated about it and understand some of those challenges. I think there's still a lot of customers who really want to hold our feet to the fire on an index, and we do our best when we can on those types of situations. So, but the other part about that index that I would say is that the NOLA index is an index that's designed for agriculture grade urea, not technical grade urea. And if you look we track the price of technical grade urea that we pay across the plants that we buy from in North America, and we track that and compare it to the NOLA index for agriculture grade urea, and there is a large difference between the per ton price in those. And they also, when you look at the price curve of those over time, they are not, they do not overlap. They are not the same. So there's a disconnect in that curve. So you can clearly see that agriculture grade urea following a NOLA index does not follow the same price curve as technical grade urea, over the same period of time. So there is a discrepancy there. So it is its own unique animal, I guess, in terms of the way it's priced.
Yeah, that's interesting. So obviously fleets are looking to cut cost. When we help them save on their DEF bill, are we helping them save in terms of they didn't know what types of volumes to buy, or is it the storage solutions? Where is it that we're helping them cut those costs, or is it kind of a mixture of everything?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things, and everybody's a little bit different. Sydney, I think one of the things that we've seen is really just delivery performance on our side. We got a fantastic team in Denver that manages all of our DEF deliveries across the U.S. and Canada, and that team does a superb job of making sure that we keep our customers wet. And I think that is one value proposition we bring to our customers that I think really makes a difference for them. There's some other things too. Storage, we mentioned earlier, help them to try and determine what the right storage is for them. Inventory managing that storage for the customer is a value proposition sometimes, because a lot of folks don't have time to go look and see how much is in the DEF tank, right? And then decide they got to place an order for it. So where we can do that for them, it takes that requirement away from the customer. And I think that's a huge value proposition we've been bringing to the table. Andy mentioned all the different production plants out there, and we buy from all of them. We have We have partnerships with all of them, which gives us a very strong distribution network across the U.S. and Canada. And it also helps us to make sure that we lock in that supply for the year. And that's what we do with these folks is say, hey, we've got customers, we're contracted with them, we're going to lock in this supply so we know we can get it and we can be a reliable source of supply. What are some of the other things you've been saying, Andy?
Yeah, I would say that I think we have built our business model at Mansfield in a way that I think gives us a bit of an edge in the market today. And it's over time that kind of gets stronger for us. We, whether supply, logistics, we have a special purpose-built technology system called Continuum that we use to manage the business. We manage it centrally, and it's much like managing, an LTL logistics or fuel business. We have central management of the logistics and supply and visibility all the way down into the end locations where we deliver to. And that system that enables us to do that and the processes give us a couple of things. One is we have visibility all the way down to the delivery. So if a delivery is late or missed, we know about it. And that's every delivery to that customer. So if we have a customer that's got 300 locations, every single one of those deliveries, we track it into the tank, and we know when it was delivered, or if it wasn't. And so that gives us ability to really quality control the logistics. We don't just farm it out and forget about it. If we do farm it out, we have our systems and eyes on it as part of the technology system and infrastructure we run on, and our business partners would run on. And the other piece of that is that so you don't have weak links in the system that can undermine your performance, because when you have large commercial backyard customers, you're only as good as your weakest location. So your weakest delivery link in that 300 site group is how good you are. So if you have any weakness in your distribution system, if you don't have visibility down to where those challenges might be arising in real time, then you don't really know about it until a customer is already telling you about it. And that's I think that central command and control and the systems and processes we've built around that is certainly it differentiates us for sure. I think when it comes to customers, DF is water. It's mostly water. The way you help customers, make the most out of their investments and their expenses is to really help reduce the logistics costs of moving that water by, making bigger deliveries, ones that are more scaled to their business. We're investing in the supply chain and rail facilities with partnerships that we own, capital equipment in those facilities. We're laying on more and more DF transport trailers and some models there. So those large assets allow you to haul more DEF, do it more efficiently, and we're really focused on making investments to continue to improve the operational efficiencies of the business, but also the command and control structure that we have over it, so that we really have good visibility down to the deliveries and the billing, and not just selling this centrally, but actually running the business that way. So I would say we kind of run the business as if we're a local fuel jobber that has good visibility and control over their trucks, but we're doing that on a national scale.
I'm sure the answer to this question also varies by customer, but as a whole, do you feel like DEF is overlooked as a procurement strategy? Like, are fleets focusing on their fuel and not their DEF, or are they focusing on both?
I think it depends. I think that generally fleets get their arms around their fuel purchases first. And certainly it is their biggest spend. It's clear why, right? I think when it comes to DEF, when it comes to lubricants, let me start at the other end. Most of the lubricants are often highly decentralized. Local, branches make their decisions on what vendor to use and maybe what brand. And then DEF is, now some of that's centralized. You got some big corporate entities that have a national program. DEF is probably somewhere in the middle in that once the fuel part has been tackled and centralized and is being effectively managed, DEF goes hand in hand with the fuel. So it's logical to extend that to DEF. But we still do find there are lots of cases where DEF procurement is decentralized, and there are not necessarily standards around what locations are using for storage and how much storage and how they're getting their deliveries. And so there is a lot of opportunity for fleets to improve their cost of ownership of the equipment, as well as the operating expense associated with DEF, by working with a partner that can help them optimize their storage, optimize the way they think about their procurement and their replenishment cycles, inventory manage that product, just like they do on fuel. Bring the same sophistication we bring to fuel, and we're very good at that at Mansfield. We bring a lot of sophistication to customers to help them manage their fuel spend. We kind of bring that same level of adherence and procurement focus to DEF as we help customers with the fuel side.
The only thing I'd add is you nailed it, Andy. We have an advantage because we are in the logistics side on fuel. It makes us better on the logistics side for DEF, and I think we can bring that to our customers' forefront and help them to improve on what they're doing currently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the DEF business, it started as a packaged business. When we started, we were only delivering packages of DEF, but we saw that it was going to become a business more like a fuel business, bulk deliveries. And so that's really, and we've been working on, building a business that does that since the beginning. And it's in our nature, it's our DNA. So I think that does help us to do a great job for our customers. So
speaking of the evolving market, what's ahead? What do we think's coming down the pipeline in the next 3 to 5 years, or maybe the next 10 years?
Yeah, I think we mentioned earlier that the truck manufacturers, to meet the new requirements for the removing more nitrous oxide from the emissions, most of them so far have said that they're going to add a second SCR unit. And that's going to impact the industry. There's no question about it. It starts in model year 2027, which is coming up fairly quickly. And that's going to be, as we mentioned, a higher need for more DEF across the board, especially as these customers turn over more of their fleet, right? So it may not be in 27, but 28, 29, 30, those are the years where they start turning over a significant amount of their fleet, that it's really going to impact how much urea is actually being used, right? And so the challenge then is do we have enough storage? Do we have enough supply? And those type of things that I think are still yet to be answered going forward. Typically the market will force that. As Andy said, we're kind of balancing the urea that we use for DEF with the urea for agriculture, and as demand grows on one side, and in cost structure changes, then they're gonna make their adjustments too. And while there are no new urea plants being built in the U.S. right now, it is a bit of a concern. Doesn't mean that some couldn't be converted that are already producing urea that are not producing technical grade for DEF. But it would require some enhancements by those producers, and the economic model has to be there for them to make that investment. So.
Yeah, I would just echo what Jim said. These additional SCR systems in the 2027 model year, they're on the demo trucks that are out there now being tested by fleets. The belief is that the incremental demand for DEF per truck will increase somewhere between 30 and 50% to get that extra 10%. The current administration is maybe thinking maybe we should roll that back. They're not going to roll back the notion of SCR systems on the trucks, but maybe the second SCR requirement. The thing is, the OEMs have already built these trucks, these engines. So it's hard. It's kind of going to be hard for the OEMs to roll something like that back because they'll have to retune the engines. And you may get another administration in 4 years that says you got to have that done. So I don't know. It's a guessing game where this ends up. I think our belief is that the OEMs will see it through, and this second SCR system will be on the trucks of the future, and we're going to see steady increase in DEF demand, even if diesel fuel is flat. We're going to see 30 to 50% increase in DEF demand because of that requirement. The other thing to keep in mind is that the shipping industry is still adding scrubbers to the ships. So you got marine DEF demand, off-road construction. Those vehicles that equipment lasts a long time, but any new yellow iron that gets put out, it's got to have these systems on it. Railroad engines have to have them now, and we're selling a good amount of DEF to the railroads actually. So there are agriculture, new tractors. So there's still markets that are still growing and still getting, not fully penetrated like the over-the-road trucking is. But I think, and that growth will pale in comparison to, this requirement for a second SCR system and what that might mean. I don't think that the DEF business is going to be shrinking. But if you had our forecasts, and if you look at the Argus industry, the forecasts, it's for steady growth of 3 to 4% over the next 10 to 15 years, and that's probably not bad. It's probably not a bad estimate because as you think about it, you've got a big fleet to replace, so it's going to just take time to replace that fleet before you're going to get the full growth of that, and it could be a 6 to 8 year kind of replacement cycle. So, and what happened last time when these requirements started in 2014 for all the over-the-road trucking, a lot of fleets bought ahead. So if there's going to be a second SCR system required on these trucks, I'm guessing that there will be a lot of fleets that potentially buy their trucks ahead of schedule over the next couple of years. So you could see a lot of demand. You could see a lot of purchases of new trucks ahead of that next second SCR system solution that's coming out and required by the EPA in 2027. So if they do that, that obviously delays the adoption of those solutions. So
a fun question that we asked Alan in his fuel tank episode was about AI and how he thought AI was going to impact fuel tanks and the fuel tank industry. I'm going to ask you guys that question. Is there any AI trends right now with DEF? Are you hearing of anything that might come down the pipeline? Is it something we're worried about, excited about? What's your thoughts around AI?
I personally think that on the logistics side, we're going to see the opportunity for us to utilize it to make things more efficient. And I think there's room for more efficiency in that piece of the business. And I think that if we really apply it appropriately, it can provide savings that we can then pass on to our customers. And maybe not all competitors will go down that route, which could give us a competitive advantage. What do you think, Andy?
Well, I'm just an agentic here today. I'm not the real Andy Austin. So this is seriously, I think all of these technology adoption cycles start with this tremendous amount of promise and hype, and how the world's going to change, right? And there's definitely change coming. You can see it, right? And the technology adoption and change happens faster every cycle, and this is a big one. I've had my own concerns about, autonomous robots and AI for 10 years, and now it's finally here. So I think there's a lot of little ways that our business is going to be improved. The ability to better handle the way we invoice, the way we handle delivery tickets, the way we handle replenishment and inventory manage, like putting, some of these AI capabilities to work on that stuff are going to be, I think, super super interesting things in the next 5 to 10 years. And, beyond that, it's, who knows? It's will we have autonomous trucks? I don't know how you still need a robot to get out and put the DEF into the tank, right? Or the fuel into the tank. So I don't know. Those get really futuristic and hard to predict, but for sure in the short term, there's a lot of opportunity to improve inefficiencies. We have in our supply chain on the fuel and DEF side, we have a lot of inefficiencies that we can improve upon. And I believe Mansfield, which invests a lot of money in technology, we invest a lot of money in technology to continue to keep our leadership in the industry, to continue to improve our solutions for our customers, to make our customers' lives easier, to make it more cost-effective for our customers. We will keep making those investments, and we are making those investments, and I think AI will play a role in helping to continue to improve efficiency there. So I kind of prefer the future of, smaller steps happening faster, but smaller than kind of big giant leaps, especially in our industry with the supply chain and the logistics chain that we have. It is not an easy one to change. It is not an easy one to bring, broad technology, broad scale adoption to. It's hard because we've been doing it for 10, 15 years now. We know that. And I think that we're going to see a lot of little implementations of a lot of things that are going to help make our whole system better and more efficient. And I think that'd be my hope for AI for us.
Let's close this out with one piece of advice that you would give a fleet manager who wants to improve their overall strategy.
I would say, from a DEF standpoint, that if you're still highly decentralized or semi-decentralized in the way you procure DEF and manage it, that you really should, if you're able to procure and manage fuel centrally in your organization, you can certainly do it for DEF. We would love to help you on that journey, and it's probably a less difficult journey than it was for fuel. And it's one that has great returns on investment in both time and any capital that's spent on it. So I think that's probably the thing I would emphasize the most.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there, Andy. In addition to the centralizing it, so that you can get that best buy across the entire organization. And I use the term optimize a lot, but if you're sitting there and you're selling out of jugs at a site, and you move that just up to a tote, you're going to make your approach so much better. So I'll call it the package size you have, whether it's a jug, a tote, or a tank. If that isn't the most optimal for that location in your business, optimize it and you will see substantial savings. And that's why a centralized program is good, because we can help the customer, each individual location, specifically give them what is best for them. And that can bring a whole lot of value to the bottom line for them.
Awesome. Well, Andy, Jim, thank you. Thank you for being here all the way from Denver. We appreciate it.
Sydney, thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, had a great conversation.
That's a wrap on today's conversation about diesel exhaust fluid, why it matters, where it's headed, and how smart supply strategies are helping fleets save big. A huge thank you to Andy Austin and Jim Timmer for joining us and shedding light on how DEF is more than just a compliance checkbox. It's a major lever for cost savings and operational efficiency. If today's episode sparked some ideas or questions about your own DEF program, reach out to the Mansfield team. We're here to help. And don't forget to subscribe to FUELScast for more expert insights on all things fuel supply and strategy. Until next time, thanks for listening.